Hello all, this is Farhana. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to have a quick comparison of cloud computing cost and will give you some tips. By 2021, 94% of the internet workload will be on the cloud, according to our friend at Cisco. Remember, by 2021. Take a moment to let that sink in. Most companies are using a hybrid strategy with the big three commodity cloud going head to head to make their cloud offering the most cost effective. The overall cost benefit of the cloud comes down in a large part of hardware responsibility. If your on-premises hardware fails, that's hefty cost on your own business. In the bottom line, on the cloud, even if a VM, a server, or an entire data center goes down, that's the responsibility of the cloud provider, and you can continue with the business as usual. Running costs can also be a lot cheaper in the cloud than on-premises because of phase pricing and elastic scaling capabilities. For example, to understand how each of the main public cloud providers handle their customer pricing. The cost of the cloud computing is, to be sure, very much of a pay-as-you-go model. You pay per use and you pay for everything. Cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and Google have spent billions to build out massive data centers the size of the football stadium, and they are not giving that away on the cheap. It is remarkable how many people forget this or don't think about the cost. Surveys have found many companies leave the cloud after getting a massive bill because they failed to accurately predict usage fees. At least, the firm should plug in their usage variables to cloud cost calculator. The major providers are all offering pay-as-you-go access to virtual machines running on Linux and Windows, so the basic features are not that different from one provider to the next. And their fees are comparable. It's the other intangible that can make your decision for you. I will approach this from the perspective of purchasing infrastructure as a service level services. Since that is the starting point for a complete package of a service, anything below that and you are either at SaaS where you are using an application or a basic service like Dropbox for simple storage. For most customers, running infrastructure as a service involves taking on-premises apps and moving them to the cloud for any of a variety of reasons, be it scale, flexibility, or to reduce cost. Because of this, the main cost for an IaaS subscription are compute and bandwidth. Compute cost will consume 60% or more of your total subscription. The next large portion bandwidth can be as high as 20% depending on how much data you're moving between on your premises system and your cloud provider. In both cases, there will be eventually come a point where it's no longer economical to operate in the cloud because the monthly cost exceeds what you would pay to run it on premises. In fact, Gartner says cost reduction should not be your motivation. We never advise customers to move to the cloud to save cost. Always remember, you don't flip a switch and move to the cloud. You have to maintain old app on premises and always running in a bio model mode. Maybe 4 or 5 years later, you start to see cost saving. In the first 6 months, absolutely not. Then there's a hidden cost most firms do not realize before moving to the cloud. Often you can't take an on-premises app and move it to the AWS or Azure and expect it to run unchanged. At best, it will not operate the same, or your app simply does not take advantage of the characteristic of the cloud. Rewriting app is a cost people overlook. If you really want to take advantage of true cloud characteristic, you will end up writing an app that looks nothing like the app on premises. It does the same thing but looks completely different. That costs. After compute and bandwidth, support can add up quickly, as can storage. Cloud providers allow customers to choose between flash and traditional disk storage, and the flash storage costs twice as much. Another cost that can spiral out of control is memory. Memory tends to be the price at a ratio of 1 to 1, meaning if you double the amount of memory you allocate for your VMs, you will pay twice as much. There are also a number of costs unrelated to the actual cost of using the service. For example, they are over-provisioning. You will allocate too much compute memory and storage and pay for something you don't use. Another issue, under-provisioning, the opposite problem, right? Where you don't have enough resolution, resources and either have to buy more or spend more to get to the work done. Fire and forget. spinning up a bunch of virtual machines and then forgetting to shut them down when you are done. If they keep running, the meter keeps ticking. Bad storage choices. You might get too much or too little or use the wrong kind of storage since there are many to choose from. Non-cloud services, virtual hardwares like load balancers and VPN are often pushed on customers who think they need them and add up quickly. Exit fees. Say you pick a provider and decide you don't like them and decide to move to another provider, you might get hit with a big fee to retrieve your data. Check for this in the fine print before signing on with the host. Support cost. Tracking down support issue can be complicated and your provider is going to charge you as hefty fees for it. There are almost 24 enterprise cloud services provider of note, so time does not permit going into a complete comparison of everyone. What we did was compare the top 4: Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and IBM, along with 2 small players that may not necessarily on the radar of most companies but are extremely price competitive. To start, we look at the size of a Linux-based virtual machine in cores and memory. They range in size from small to double, extra large, and break down this way. Server size, CPU, core RAM, which is small, medium, large, XL or XXL. The price difference between the small players and the big players, however, is astounding. If you look at the provider from small, medium, large to XL and 2XL, you will see a price of Amazon versus Microsoft versus IBM Software versus Google versus Internet and versus 1&1. You see that is Internet, for example, the first cloud service provides that comes to mind by looking at the price, or the second, but it's clearly the leader in the price. The provider 1&1, which primarily sells hosting and domain, is also extremely price competitive if your needs fit their system. That's why it pays to shop around. Next, we'll look at block storage, a common form of cloud data storage. The prices vary widely, but also so do the services. Some providers offer much greater guarantees of performance, but it comes at a cost. So here we are seeing the provided and what storage type they are providing and the GB per month. You see there are all cloud providers along with their services and the cost associated to it. There are many other price metrics, some easier to compare than others because the provider either do or do not providing pricing information on their websites. Data transfer rates, for instance, can be difficult to find for all the different providers because some providers don't list them. In the end, there is no one single answer. For example, Google Cloud is much cheaper than AWS and Azure for computing optimized cloud-based instances. On the other hand, it's more expensive than others when it comes to the instance type of accelerated computing. AWS is up to 5 times more expensive than Azure for Windows Server and SQL Server. Spot VM, on the other hand, are 90% more cost-effective than traditional pay-as-you-go VMs on Azure and are used for interruptible workloads. Data is the oil of this generation, the essential thing to have and know in business decision. However, moving data is not free. Data transfer pricing is critical to cloud cost management. Cloud pricing might often feel unpredictable. Think regions and availability zones. Not all services will cost you equally. Billing alarm exists and can help you as you get used to the cloud. Your invoices may need some translation, and you are probably wasting resources. And at the end, you are going to need support. Thank you for listening.